I'm Eric Lipsy, and this is Golf. Today, I'm here with Jackie Sue, certified yoga therapist, as well as yoga instructor. How are you today, Jackie?
I'm doing really well. Thanks, Eric.
I'm so glad to have you here. I've been taking your class actually for about 5 years, I think now. And it's
Nearly as
just
long as I've been teaching it, I feel like.
yeah, it has been great for me as far as even my personal development and my spiritual development. And even I know it's been really tough for me because I'm also just kind of this I have this overly active brain, what I like to call restless brain syndrome. So you've been trying to work with me on the meditation. So I figured when I had the idea for doing this, I better get Jackie on to talk about meditation because I know it is something that you do often and something that you've helped others to develop a meditation practice. So the first thing I wanted to ask is, what was it that got you into meditating?
Um, yeah, I looked at this question, and my reflection, of course, looking back on a journey, you're always like, that's not what in like I don't feel like I was ever inspired, there wasn't like a switch or I went from not meditating to meditating.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody does that. Maybe. But through my early 20s, really from college and my early post-college years, I struggled a lot with depression and
Mm.
anxiety, which I'd like to think I'm not alone in that. It seems
No,
to me that,
absolutely not.
yeah, especially I think young women, possibly in their college, post-college years.
Mm.
Um, I would literally wake up and put on my makeup, my clothes. I'd get all ready to go to work, and I'd have 10 minutes left, and I would slide down the wall in my bathroom and I'd cry. And
Oh,
I would pick myself up, and like it was, and those I think who struggle with that, like I
oh,
referred to it as a dark pit. Like it was just kind of what I lived with. And it was like normal. I
mhm.
hate to say that, even though I knew I wasn't happy, obviously, with it.
Yeah.
And I was living on the Navajo reservation at the time. I was a high school teacher. So it was
Okay.
in
Huh.
this gorgeous but isolated place. And so it was really um, like a self-discovery of I started running and I started doing yoga podcasts just on my own.
Yeah.
Um, and I knew that those things helped. Like I could feel once I started doing them that like something was changing, that it was at least alleviating. It wasn't making that all go away. But
Uh-huh.
if I forced myself to do those things, it helped. So then when I moved back to Illinois for a brief time, that's where I'm from,
Uh-huh.
I took a yoga teacher training, not to become a teacher. I was like, something here works to help my mental health. And I want to know what it is. I want to know more about it.
Yeah.
And in the 200-hour Life Power Yoga teacher training, which is the one I took, they have you do what's called the dailies.
Hmm.
So a daily practice, including physical movement and meditation.
Hmm.
So that was really, I wouldn't say I felt inspired so much as that my journey kind of led me up until that part where, I had to start meditating as part
Yeah.
of like schoolwork. I was always a good student.
That's awesome.
um, so when I started doing that, of course it snowballed and I moved to Colorado and I did start teaching, and then I wanted more of it, right? Because all of it just kept working, and it took me several years to realize that I wasn't really working with depression and anxiety anymore for myself. I was like,
Right,
oh,
right, right.
I'm not this anymore. It was
Yeah.
my story and it's no longer my story. Like, I don't know where it happened exactly. But I went on to become a yoga therapist, which is an 800-hour certification, a very long journey more recently.
Wow.
And there was more meditation and more ways of meditating than I ever realized.
It's a lot of
Um,
hours.
yeah, well, it's been over years. It
Yeah,
wasn't
yeah,
like
yeah,
bam,
absolutely.
wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. Um, but just like sound meditation and visualization, like beautiful ways to meditate that even though um, I was kind of offered this way of meditating in the beginning of my journey, I've learned so many other ways that have really resonated with me in a different way.
Mhm.
So that's kind of a very long-winded answer.
Oh, no, not at
I
all.
think, to
No,
your
it's great. I love the story. I actually learned something new about you that I didn't know before, so that's
yeah,
great.
yeah, good.
Well, my next question for you is on the benefits. Now, you might have mentioned some already as far as how it benefited you, but what are with some of the people that you work with, what are some of the benefits that you've noticed that they've achieved or have come into fruition for them with the act of meditating?
I like the reworking of that question because I feel like anybody can go out and Google the benefits of meditation and you'll find, and that's what I love. I'm actually a science nerd. I want to know like the real hardcore like science behind things,
Yes.
which I think is why my yoga journey has lasted so long. Because I'm like, no, don't give me like these kind of fluffy answers over here. And like, I don't, I want like, the science behind
Yes, yes,
why
yes.
this works.
I love it.
So I do think that one of the biggest benefits I see with people is, and this is meditation or other yoga practices, the movement or the visualization or just breathing. The words that really come to my mind, it's regulation.
Mm,
So self-regulation. So rather than a mood arise, let's call like depression or anxiety, right? If you're blue or if you're hyper anxious or um, scattered even,
mhm.
right? The ability to recognize what it is that you are feeling, what you're
Mhm.
experiencing, to name it, and then have a tool to regulate, to self-regulate that emotion um, or that experience so that it doesn't run you.
Right.
So uh, scientifically, right, you can go and Google how this works in the brain, how meditation, um, it decreases. I actually looked this up because I do love this. It decreases activity in the default mode network,
Huh.
which is about mind wandering. And typically, anxious thoughts are about worrying about your future, more depressive thoughts ruminating within your past. And the more that we're split away from our present moment, be it future or past,
Mhm.
the more suffering we experience, right?
Yes. And I think
So,
it's really interesting how you say about the present moment too, because I was talking to someone once and they were saying that they accredited their success in life to being present, and the meditation helped them with that. So,
yes,
yeah.
yes, just being able to, like, even on a day off, right? Like,
Mhm.
not that you know what that is.
Right. I need to, but yes.
But I used to, back when I struggled more, I'd have
Uh-huh.
a day off and I'd be worried about the Monday. I'd be like, oh my gosh, I have so much to do. Oh my gosh, this is going to be miserable again. Right. Like, and you're sitting there, you know, having time to relax and you're worried about the next thing. Right.
Yes.
Versus, um, it's so simple. It's so amazingly simple to train your mind to focus, to be within the present moment so that, yes, whatever is going to come is going to come and you can
Right.
prepare for it and you can think about it, but in a way that you're still in your moment, right?
Mhm.
You can still enjoy the present moment and be fully encapsulated in it.
Mhm.
Um, so for me, and I think the clients that I work with, the people that I've had in class, right? You see this calm happen over time. You see, like I've seen people like their personalities near, like they don't ever like completely change, like personality wise, I guess, but like the less reactive they become, right?
Right.
The happier they become, like
Mhm.
their stories change, like the
Yes.
story you tell yourself about who you are and what you do and what controls your life changes completely,
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah, I think
If
that's
you're
really something.
consistent.
How you were saying about how they become happier through the process, and that's something that I've been really exploring lately. Is the is
Sorry, my cat.
the oh no, that's fine. I get it.
He'll be in my lap and he'll shush. Sorry.
Is the level of happiness is sometimes created through the level of peace, and if the meditation helps you bring that peace, then it also seemed like it would bring up your level of happiness, or how often you're happy if you have that peace that can be achieved through meditation. I don't know. It seems like it just strings off of the other one. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And there was a great, oh, I should have looked it up. There was a great TED talk a few years back that like outlined how they studied how often people's minds would wander, right?
Uh-huh.
Like you talk about the wandering mind or the monkey mind.
Yeah.
Um, and the more that people do mindfulness work or meditation work, right? The less that wandering happens, and truly the happier that they were able to measure their sense of contentment,
Yes.
right?
Hmm.
Uh, so yeah, there's there's lots of scientific ways to put what the benefits are and like improving memory and all these things. But to me, it's like, no, your peacefulness increases and your happiness increases.
Right.
Productivity probably increases. You're able to focus your mind better to what's called monotasking,
Right.
like we glorify the multitasking, but that's also shown not to be like highly effective, or your work is not as good, or you don't
Mhm.
get as much out of it when you multitask consistently. And truly the brain's not meant to multitask, one
Yeah.
thing at a time.
Right.
Meditation is the ultimate training for that,
Yeah.
right?
So, and I like how you mix the science in with the other pieces, because the science is quantifiable usually, but the other pieces aren't necessarily. Like your level of happiness or peace, you can't really
They've tried.
quantify that
They've
sort of thing.
tried.
Yeah, but it matters, and you can tell the difference. You know that it's happening, but just to be able to say, "Oh yeah, you're going to have 50% more of the X,
Yeah,
Y, Z," but your brain, you can say, "This is what's happening in your brain scientifically." But these are the other things that it brings into your life that has great value that you may not necessarily be able to measure
right.
in percentages, but it still has the value. Yeah.
Yes,
That's great.
totally. Yes.
Love it. Now, the next question I have for you is on the habit of meditating. Like, as I know for you, well, I've struggled with that. It is just something, because like I said, I have the restless brain syndrome, but I have been taking some of the things that you taught me in some of your classes and trying to apply them to my life. So I am getting better. I think I can meditate probably up to 2 minutes now. But that's an improvement for me. That's an improvement. But what are some tools that people can probably, start implementing to create the habit of meditating, as well as breaking into a practice of meditating, especially people who might struggle with just quieting their brain down enough to even get started?
Yeah. I have in my mind, there's like two parts to the question, because in the first part, if you want to jump right into meditating, it is a simple practice,
Yeah.
right? It's like any other habit you want to build. So I've done some work as a nutrition coach and personal training as well. And it's almost always the same. Or if you read books on motivation and change and habit making, like start small,
Yeah.
right? But be consistent.
Hmm.
So you've got to choose a reasonable goal. And you also got to have the timely goal, right? Like a SMART goal.
Uh-huh. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Tap onto that a little bit. But decide for you, right? 2 minutes of meditation. Are you doing it every single day? Do you
Hmm.
have a space in which you meditate, right? If you set
Right.
aside, I'm in my library right now, it's a quiet space where I can shut the door.
Hmm.
Um, and as long as I let my cat in, otherwise he wants outside of it. But then he's a great meditator. He sits on the cushion with me. He's just
Right.
totally there. The animals are some of the best like role models for us. They know how to be present. I love
Oh
it.
yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
but
Absolutely.
set aside the time, right? It's like if you want to go running in the morning, put out your running clothes and your shoes right next to your bed, set the
Mhm.
alarm, right? Do it every single day until it becomes the habit. So with
Mhm.
meditation, say start with 5 minutes, right? For
Right.
the first week and write it down. I love keeping a planner and like, all right, meditate, meditate, meditate on it each single day, just waiting for me to check it off or scratch it off, right?
Uh-huh.
um, with that goal to increase, ideally you're working up to, again, this is like a scientific, like where you reap the most benefits of meditation comes in at around 20 minutes.
Mhm.
Okay. But if all you make is 10 minutes, if all you make is your 2 minutes right
Yeah.
now, right? That's where you are now, but you're doing it every single day.
Right.
Um, I would start and then your physical body as well as the mental body has to have time to acclimate. So I used to meditate either against a couch or a bed frame or a wall to help
Mhm.
support my back, because your physical body actually has to get used to the seat as well, and finding the right cushion height for your hip. Like there's all these little things where it's like, don't expect yourself to sit down like Rafiki flat on the floor and be able to meditate for 30 minutes right off the bat. Like that is not a reasonable goal to set for yourself. So I would say start with small steps, but commit to a daily consistent practice for like, say, I'm going to do it for the next 30 days, right?
Yes.
And if all I do is 2 minutes a day for the next 30 days, that's better than no minutes for no days.
Yes.
There are lots of apps to help you with that. Insight Timer is free. Calm has a small subscription fee, but they all have like intro to meditation where you can also track your days if you're more of a track on an app type of person.
Okay.
So that for me is start small, right? Like if you're going to go to the gym and want to start deadlifting and getting personal records, you're not going to jump right to your personal record that you will make it to. You start with a certain amount of weight and you add as you go.
Right.
Same for the strength of your mind. It's like a muscle, like anything else. You've got to start where it's at and then grow.
Right.
The other part to the question for those who struggle, and this is too, like those who struggle with like a personal training program, movement, exercise, getting fit. I'm very much in the camp of you got to find things you enjoy to do or that at least resonate with you. And for the longest time, like this is, I think, one of the biggest things that either clients or students struggle with is that I just can't sit still and listen to my breath. I can't do that. Yeah. Right. I won't do that. Like that's torture to me. So finding a method of meditation, whether it's like you find a guided one that you just love through an app or a teacher that you really resonate with, that you can kind of follow along with what they guide you through and find that sort of stillness within the brain. And this kind of ties in, I know you're going to ask me another question about the different strategies. There are more than one ways to meditate. Yeah. Right. There's more than one way to meditate. Sitting still and focusing on your breath is Vipassana. It's one of the most straightforward, like you don't need any equipment or fancy app to guide you. You just literally just sit and listen to your breath. But maybe your kind of avenue in finding your pathway, your ticket is through like a chanting meditation or mantra. Maybe you are more of a physical being and you start with walking meditations, right? There's so many different ways to train your mind to monotask that will lead you to the place where you're better able to sit still and simply breathe and be, which is what meditation is. You know what I mean?
You bring up a very interesting point, because I've always kind of had this thing in my head that maybe the reason why I struggle with the meditation is because I'm trying to do it like someone else. Because I would notice sometimes when I could go sit by a river and I can sit there by myself, nothing, just sit there for hours and just be fine with it. I can go hiking by myself and just be completely, just feel like I'm in this oneness connection, the kind of thing where I just feel at peace, ultimate peace in my life, and I could do that. But I would know other people who could sit down, but they would struggle to sit by a river for even 30 minutes, and it's just something that I noticed. So as you're saying that, it's resonating with me. It's just it's like what's good for the goose might not necessarily be good for the gander kind of thing, where it's like you have to find that thing that works for you, that allows you to find that center and that calmness kind of thing. Is that on point with what you're saying, or am I getting it a little?
I would say you have your ticket now. Like you know what it feels like. For me, another one that kind of crosses my mind is when I play the piano. Do you play an instrument?
Drums, but that's probably not going to be good for
and this is what happens, you've taken flow yoga, right? Or the flow. If you become absorbed in that task, that singular pointed task, right? To the point where you're not thinking about it anymore. Hiking, you're not necessarily, there are moments where maybe it's technical and you have to think about where to place your feet and all that stuff. But sitting by the river, right? Just sensing in, letting yourself become absorbed with sitting there. Now, the trouble is you and your restless thoughts. Are you sitting there and are you like planning things?
Analyzing
Are you
everything.
organizing in your head versus
Yeah.
are you just like you talked about oneness and that kind of like ultimate peace?
Mm-hmm.
And that is kind of the goal of meditation, is what is called samadhi or bliss,
Mm-hmm.
is that you become completely absorbed at one with the universe, with what you call higher power, whatever your spirituality is, with everything.
Mm-hmm.
There is no division, right?
Right.
Um, if you have sensed that before, then you kind of know if you can bring something of that into a daily practice, because as lovely as it would be able to like hike every day or sit by the river every
Right.
day,
Yeah.
well, you can't necessarily, some people are lucky enough to,
Uh-huh.
but what kind of practice, and then it becomes your meditation, right?
Mm-hmm.
To bring that sense into your daily being,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
right?
Yeah, because you absolutely just pinpointed my challenge is that I can't go by the river every day. I can't do that. And when I need to, so that's why I've been working on the practice too, where it's just like, okay, wherever you are, just be able to bring yourself into it. And I'm not gonna lie, it's a struggle for me, but I'm working on it.
And
I'm
it
getting
might
there.
be then for you the visualizate that there's something called your inner sanctuary
Uh-huh.
in some of the guided meditations, guided relaxations in some of the yoga therapist trainings that I've done.
Mm-hmm.
And that inner sanctuary is that place of stillness that you can go. So it could be that when you sit down to try to meditate, you could meditate upon developing that sense of what the river brings for you,
Mm-hmm.
visualizing the river
Yeah,
rather than trying to sit and breathe,
I can see
right?
that.
Trying to sit and visualize that inner sanctuary for yourself, where when you go there, you are more peaceful, you are more at ease, right?
Right.
Like letting that become the kind of lead in to maybe a space where you can be still then.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
I love it. I know it resonates with me. I can totally see how that could actually, even just when you were talking about it, I could visualize the river and automatically I just felt calmer just when you were saying it. Just the thought of it kind of brought me a sense of peace. I don't know. It's just crazy, even
I
by
love
itself.
that.
Like, yeah, it completely resonates with me. So, yeah,
Yes,
that's good stuff. Absolutely.
love it.
And that's why you do what you do, right? Well, Jackie, I'll tell you, I'm so grateful. I'm so thankful that you were able to share your time with us, to share your knowledge and your wisdom with us today. And I want to provide the opportunity for if people want to get in touch with you later. What are some of the best ways for people to reach out?
Yeah, so I do have a website. If you Google Yogini Jackie Sue, uh, um, it's Yogini Jackie Sue at wordpress.com.
Okay.
So I fairly occasionally will blog on there, but it has links to my Instagram where I
Okay.
post, and links to if you need to get in touch with, if you are interested in either, one-on-one yoga sessions or yoga therapy, if you want to know more about what yoga therapy is, because that is a fairly newer, I would say, role. It's been around for over 20 years, but it's not been known. It's becoming more and more of a certifiable and kind of rising.
Do you have time to share with us a little bit about what yoga therapy is right now?
Yeah,
Okay. Very good.
definitely. So it is basically one-on-one, right? So yoga instructors, 200 or 500 hour yoga instructors, while they do one-on-ones with people for yoga, it is much more within that class setting, teaching you, right, just the practices of yoga, how to physically move, what are the asanas, what are the breath work, what is meditation, how to meditate.
Right.
Yoga therapy takes that a step further into that individualized empowering of an individual to progress their own healing. So there are many niches within that. And part of the 800-hour certification is kind of getting a broad scope.
Yeah.
And then the master classes from some of the masters within those niches, such as yoga for cancer or yoga for cancer recovery. I very much enjoy working in yoga for grief relief,
Hmm.
especially given the COVID year we've had and the state of the world. There's lots of grief out there, and there's actually very specific tools and steps and tasks that you work through when it comes to grieving that I personally just resonate and love working with people, because you can see transformations so much so through the work of that. There's yoga for anxiety and depression, which obviously is kind of my back. We tend to stay in the wheelhouses of what we've gone through, you know.
Yeah.
There are practices for calming anxiety as well as
Hmm.
uplifting depression. It just becomes like the whole world of yoga, but let's take all of these various tools and pinpoint working with an individual, just like with you, right? What's going to resonate with you to help you kind of create your own personal practice
Hmm.
rather than just relying on coming to it. And don't get me wrong, like I love teaching my classes and you love the classes. It's great
Yeah,
to go to yoga
absolutely.
classes, but I I am a champion for your personal practice. What are you doing for yourself every single day? And a
Hmm.
yoga therapist, whether you do have an illness or disease, or there's structural yoga therapy for more of physical, if you've had illness or injury or anything like that in the physical body. So it's just much more individualized, and it works with the person to empower them to kind of find the practices that really resonate and work for them, to
Hmm.
be to remember their wholest truest selves. You know what I mean?
That's outstanding. I mean, I literally had no idea that there were yoga sessions or things like that, or practices centered around specific like illnesses or areas of improvement. I had no idea.
Yeah. Well, now you do.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
And it's amazing work. I've worked with some really, really amazing teachers.
Uh-huh.
I feel like even given my experience in the trainings I've taken, like I still feel like a fledgling yoga therapist compared to the work that some people are really doing out there. It's really inspiring.
Well, you say they are amazing yoga teachers, but I have to say too, just to interject, you're an amazing yoga teacher. I enjoy your class. I love how you always challenge me to be better. You're always pushing me. It's just like, I don't think I can do it anymore. And you're like, you can do anything for 5 press, and I'm like, I don't know. Like, yeah,
Including meditate.
yeah. Including meditate. That's right. That's right. So it's pushing me to be better, and it's encouraging me. It's not so much pushing because I want to be better,
Yeah.
but it encourages me to take that next step and to improve a little bit. So I appreciate you for that. For
No,
sure.
I so appreciate you. It's students like you that just make my job so much fun and so worthwhile. It's been so great
Thank
to
you.
have you in class and see you grow and all the things. So I appreciate that from you, Eric, truly.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Jackie, for your time. I really appreciate it. I think there's some really great nuggets here that are going to help people along their journey. I mean, we do this for business people, but if anyone listens who's may not even have a business, I think they'll still find this information very helpful. So thank you again for your time.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
of course. Yes. I would really encourage, there's never enough time, but there are practices out there, breath work and visualization, that it's hard. It sounds so vague. I know I've listened to these
Oh, no.
podcasts before. I'm like, tell me what they are. So truly, if anybody wants tools or resources, because it is hard to just sit down and breathe and meditate, but there are
Yes.
ways to
Mhm.
find your access point. So I do truly hope that this inspires people to go search for theirs.
I'm certain it will.
Yeah.
Certain it will. This inspired me. So,
Good.
well, thank you again. And until next time, this is Galt.